With Thanksgiving coming up this week, I'd just like to take a moment to wish a happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching this, especially if you're a turkey. Because we're going to slit your throat, stuff your dumb bird corpse with breads, chopped vegetables, garlic and rosemary, and then bake you in an oven for 4 hours. It's what you f***ing deserve. This will be your final happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, your final happy Thanksgiving. John Oliver, great comedian, talking turkey and doing a little comedy bit on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I hope it was a wonderful day with family and friends and something memorable. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock tonight and tomorrow night. It was certainly a memorable night in AT&T Stadium. Boy, how about that halftime with Lainey Wilson and then Jelly Roll coming out? That's how you do a halftime. The NFL needs to take notice because when they put on these games for the Super Bowl and they bring in these artists that do like Kendrick Lamar, I know he's big. No, thank you. I'm not interested. Bring in Lainey Wilson and Jelly Roll. That's how you do a halftime. That's how you do entertainment. Scrolling through social media, I can't find a negative comment about it. Now, last year, the Cowboys had Dolly Parton. Yeah, that was okay. That was, that was memorable. But this was entertaining. This was very good. Lainey Wilson, Jelly Roll. If you were there, I'd love to hear from you. How did that sound? How did that performance go off in that stadium? I wasn't there, so I didn't experience it. But I'd love to hear your take on that. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. John Oliver talking about turkey, talking about food. I've said it before. Name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm not a turkey guy. I think turkey's overrated. Turkey's not a great food item, especially for Thanksgiving. And here's my thought. If turkey's so good, why don't you make it more than once a year? People only do a turkey once a year, except for Lester. Lester called me an hour and a half or so ago. He's a rancher down in Franklin. And he said, Jeff, you don't know turkey. And he talked me through it. And I'm like, okay, you got my attention now, Lester. I have to try that. And I asked him if he's got a restaurant down there. I'd love to come try it. But he doesn't. He's a rancher. He raises cattle and he sells cattle. But he says he and his family do turkey at least once a month. They do barbecue. And he talked about specifically what he does. He said you grind it up the right way and you can make a patty out of it. And it's hamburger type patties. And you can't tell the difference. It's phenomenal. That got my attention. But my thought is this. Turkey's overrated. It's not that great of a food. You only buy a bird and cook it once a year. I don't know anybody that does it more than once a year except for Lester. I don't know Lester, but I talked to him a little while ago. If turkey were really good, excuse me, you do it more than once a year and you don't. You see, I love pizza. I don't eat pizza just once a year. I love a good PB&J. I don't do that once a year. And I'm not talking just a slice of bread and then peanut butter and some jelly on it. To me, here's a great PB&J. You go buy whole grain bread at the store, like really big, thick bread that was just made today. You put it in the toaster. You toast it up. You take some Jif Crunchy. I can't do creamy peanut butter. I need crunchy peanut butter. Put crunchy peanut butter on it. I pull out blackberry jelly. Love blackberry jelly. You put blackberry jelly on it, and then you take some fresh blackberries that you just bought that day from the store. You slice them up a little bit as best you can. You put that on top. And then on top of that, you put real cashews, salted cashews. And then you top it off with a second layer of that bread. Now that is a PB&J, my friends. I don't eat that just once a year. You want a great PB&J? Toasted bread, specialty bread, Jif crunchy peanut butter, not creamy. Blackberry jam on top of that, fresh blackberries on top of that, and salted cashew peanuts on top of that. Now that is or if you like strawberry jam, you put strawberry jam on it, and then you slice some strawberries and put it on it. If you like raspberry jam, you put raspberry jam on it, and you put some fresh raspberries on it. But a PB&J to me is the peanut butter, great peanut butter. It's got to be crunchy. Then you select the fruit flavor of your jelly, and you get fresh fruit to put on top of that and sprinkle in some cashews. Now that is a PB&J. I don't do that once a year. Why is it we only do turkey once a year? My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock. 800-288-9227. Changed my mind. Turkey's not a good food. If it were, you'd make it more than once a year. Changed my mind. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Thanksgiving weekend to me is not just about food. It's also a kickoff for Christmas. I grew up in a household that cherished Christmas. My dad was a plumber. And here's what we did as a kid. My dad in the he was born in 22, died in 93. Probably in the 40s or 50s, he worked with his hands. He built the first ever, that anybody knows of, rotating Christmas tree stand. He did it by using a small engine like a lawnmower engine. I don't know how he did it. I was too young to know this because it wasn't around when I was. But somehow he built a rotating Christmas tree stand. So we could put a Christmas tree in the stand and he could turn it on. He didn't have it on all the time, but it would rotate. It would turn very slowly. And we didn't do fake Christmas trees. It was a real Christmas tree. So that tree, the tree itself, once you put it in the stand and you water it, that thing had to be 45, 50 pounds. And you put lights and other things on it, it had to weigh 60 pounds. So the Christmas tree stand, the rotating Christmas tree stand, had to be sturdy enough to hold a 50 or 60, maybe even 70-pound tree and turn. He said to me once that his challenge was the belts that he was using kept snapping because of the weight of the tree. So he figured that out and he solved that problem. But my dad built the first Christmas tree stand. I remember saying rotating Christmas tree stand that would hold water for a real Christmas tree. I said, Dad, why didn't you patent that and make those, mass market those? Because we could have been really rich, really rich. He never did, but he was ingenuity. It's what my dad did. And he made it better because here's what we did. And my dad taught me this. I do not do it today because I don't have a rotating Christmas tree stand. I actually inherited a rotating Christmas tree stand he ended up buying, but I've never used it because it is so old that I can't get parts for it. It's one of the challenges I have. I would love to do that. But what my dad would do is because, and we always did real trees. You know, fake trees are straight, right? The trunk is straight. But real trees just don't typically grow straight. We always went out to a Christmas tree farm and cut down a tree. And we cut down 2 trees. And we'd also always select 2 trees. And I'll tell you in 4 minutes why 2 trees and why that was so important with a rotating Christmas tree stand. That's what my dad and I did. It was my dad and I thing. And tomorrow I'm going to do it all over again with my family because I've made it somewhat of a family tradition. But I don't do it exactly like my dad. We don't buy 2 trees. We get 1. And I'll tell you why my dad and I used to do 2 trees and what it meant to us at Christmas and how that impacted our Christmas and why we only do 1. I want to hear your stories. When is too early to set up your Christmas tree? When is too early to set up your decorations? I know folks that do it in October. I'm doing it tomorrow. Then I'll be on tomorrow night and tell the stories. Hopefully I don't have stories to share, but I'll share 2 of them that occurred in the last couple years that hopefully you don't deal with when you set yours up. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. My phone number, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock, your stories and my stories coming up in about 3 minutes on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope it's been a nice one for you. I'm Jeff, Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Crock. As Chris is back Monday, he's taking a couple of days off. I'll be back tomorrow night. We're talking Thanksgiving stories. What are you thankful for? Who has impacted your life that you'd like to say thank you to on the radio and tell me the story about how they've impacted your life? We're talking food. I say that turkey's overrated. Not a fan of turkey. For all my life, every time my wife has done Thanksgiving, she always buys a honey-baked ham or a big old ham, and I have ham because turkey to me just isn't good. Changed my mind. Lester called earlier and told me a couple things about turkey that piqued my interest. I said, Lester, if you got a restaurant, I'm coming down there and trying that. I want to try that. He said, I don't. I'm just a rancher. I raise cattle, and I'm in the beef business, but here's how to do turkey. I kind of like what he said. Changed my mind. I don't like turkey. Turkey's not that great. If turkey were really good, why is it you only do it once a year? Why? Again, there are a lot of foods that I like and I love. I don't eat them once a year. But why do you do? I don't know anyone that does turkey more than once a year. Nobody. Lester called earlier and said he does. He and his family do about once a month. I understand that. But when I talk about turkey and Thanksgiving, people generally agree and say, yeah, Jeff, you're right. Turkey's not that great of a food, but it's kind of a staple item. It's sort of like sauerkraut or cabbage rolls or something like that on New Year's Day. No thanks. No way. If I'm eating greens, I'm not into greens. As a kid, my mom said, you got to eat green stuff. It's good for you. Anything with color's good. I said, that's fine, Mom. I'll eat colored foods. I'll eat the green M&Ms, yellow ones, and the red ones. That's fine. I'll eat colors. She's like, no, you know what I'm talking about. I'm like, yeah, I am too. It's color. Anyway, turkey, I'm not a fan. Changed my mind. 800-288-9227. I say if turkey were really good, if it really were good, you'd do it more than once a year. I don't know anybody that does it more than once a year. But it's a staple of Thanksgiving. So I was talking a moment ago about Christmas. Tomorrow is kind of the kickoff for me in Christmas. Me and my family will drive out of town. We'll go to a Christmas tree farm. We'll literally spend an hour trying to pick a tree. And I usually leave it to the kids and say, you guys got to agree on what tree we're getting. And when they finally agree, I chop it down. We drag it down to a bus. The bus takes us back to the home of this farm. We pay for it. We put it in the truck or car or whatever it is, and we take it home and set it up. Speaking of Christmas trees, my wife was up in Knoxville this last week because our youngest daughter lives in Knoxville. From there, they drove over to Asheville, North Carolina. They went over to visit the Biltmore. My wife sent me pictures of what she ran into driving towards Asheville. And the devastation in that area from that hurricane is still there, and it's significant. So during Thanksgiving, keep those folks in your mind. You know, when a hurricane hits Florida, when a hurricane hits Texas, FEMA is there to help, and the federal government and resources are there. And those coastal communities expect storms. But remember, in September, that storm hit Florida, went right up through the East Coast and absolutely wiped out a lot of area of North Carolina. One of the stories I heard, I'll come back to the story about my dad and a Christmas tree, but it ties back to it. I know a guy that owns a big old nursery back up in the state of Ohio. He told me a story. He said he always drives down to just outside of Asheville, up in the mountains, North Carolina, to buy balsam firs and Christmas trees, real life, true Christmas trees. He buys them by the truckload, sets them up, and sells them out of his nursery store up in Ohio. He said he talked to a friend of the nursery right after about a week after the hurricane that came through North Carolina. Now, these tree farms in North Carolina are on the side of a mountain. And he said the torrential rainfall that they had created such movement in the earth that wiped out those farms and those trees. He told me the story that this guy that he knows through the Christmas tree farm where he buys stuff, the guy is not he's an employee at the place. And the employee had driven to where the tree farm was, and on that hundreds of acres of a tree farm was the man who owned the tree farm, his house and a barn that he'd built over many years to help facilitate his business. This employee was standing on the side of the road looking at a bare canvas, nothing. I mean, a year ago, better yet, a week prior, there was several homes and businesses on this site. And at the moment he was standing there was nothing. It was just been wiped clean, as if it had never had a foundation, because the foundation had been covered up by soot. So it almost looked like there was never been any building or structure in the site. Up pulls a sheriff, because obviously in these weather-torn communities, law enforcement, especially in middle America like that, are everywhere. Up pulls the sheriff, and the sheriff pulls up, and he rolls down the window and says, "Can I help you?" And the guy said, "Yeah." the tree farm employee. He says, I'm looking for the house. I'm looking for the offices. And the sheriff said, there ain't no house, there ain't no offices, never have been. And the employee stopped, turned around, looked at the sheriff, said, Sheriff, get out of your car for a minute. He did, because he could tell he was not under any threat. And he said, walk with me for a second. They started walking towards where the house would have been. And the sheriff's like, well, where are we going? Why are we doing this? And the guy said, this used to be a tree farm of hundreds of acres. There were thousands and thousands of trees in here, balsam fir, Douglas firs, canane fir trees, that this family had developed this tree farm. And this area right here, about 10 feet over, that was a foundation for this man's house. And the sheriff said, there's no foundation there. The guy said, let's walk over and look. They moved the soot and found a foundation. And the sheriff went, holy crap, what happened? And where is that house? And they agreed that the house was in a river down at the end of the mountain. And the sheriff said to him, where's the family? And the employee had tears in his eyes and said, I don't know. I'm still waiting to find them. Hoping maybe you had answers. Those are folks in the North Carolina area still devastated by the hurricanes. When that happens in big cities, media covers it. Well, when it happens in North Carolina, especially with families that have Trump signs in the yards, nobody covers it. It got covered up. FEMA hasn't helped them enough. They're devastated. Keep them in your thoughts this Thanksgiving. That's going to cause the cost of Christmas trees to be up, because a lot of Christmas trees across this country, especially in the East Coast, up north where I'm from, up across Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and some of those states, the Rust Belt states, they're grown and come from the state of North Carolina, and some from Michigan. Several tree farms in the North Carolina were wiped out. That's their livelihood. There's still, I looked it up the other day, there's still like 400 or 500 people missing from those floods, just wiped out. It's a fascinating story. My wife sent me those pictures when she was up in Knoxville as she drove over that area and said, I just can't believe the devastation I'm seeing. And it's one of those things, unless you see it, you can't believe it. And you're not seeing it because television and media is not covering it. But it's real. Keep them in your thoughts. Keep them in your prayers this Thanksgiving holiday. I want to tell you the rest of the story about tomorrow. I'm going to be decorating a tree, cutting it down at a tree farm, dragging it home, and hopefully I don't have a mishap. I've had mishaps. Have you? I want to hear your story. Have you had mishaps with Christmas decorations? Have you had problems with Christmas decorations? Have you have stories that you still tell about Christmas decorating things in your house, around the house? I'd love to hear your story. 800-288-9227. It's 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. I got to hit Bob in the Hour News with Sean Allen in the newsroom. On the other side of that, he's coming up in 2 minutes. On the other side of that, about 3 minutes after the newscast there, I'll be back. We'll talk about your stories about Christmas trees, setting decorations up. How early is too early to set that all up? I'm doing it tomorrow. Is it too early? Is it not? When do you do it? How early is too early? Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I hope it was a wonderful day for you. Many of you will have tomorrow off and a long weekend to celebrate with family, friends, and do what you do. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Sitting in for Chris. Chris Crock has taken off last night, tonight, tomorrow night. He'll be back on Monday. I'll be sitting in tomorrow night also. We're talking about Thanksgiving and what are you thankful for above and beyond family and friends? I'm thankful for many folks who have had significant impacts on my career and my personal life outside of family and friends. I'm also grew up in an era of family where Christmas was something special. We decorated a lot. My dad was a plumber. He made a lot of the Christmas decorations, and our house was lit up at a time that was, boy, you talk about drain on the energy grid. My house was like that growing up. You want to talk about starting a civil war? I'll tell you what you do. When your kids go off and get married, and that first Christmas together, and you have one family that grew up with real Christmas trees and another one with fake Christmas trees, that was me. I was all about real Christmas trees. My dad taught me you go get a real Christmas tree and set it up. But there was a time and era where my dad wanted to go to a fake Christmas tree, and there was a family revolt. And I remember we did a real Christmas tree, set it up, had it going, and then over in the corner of a different room was my dad decided to set up a fake Christmas tree, artificial tree, because he wanted something easy. And we said, no way. So the family pitched in. We had a real Christmas tree, the family Christmas tree in the big living room, family room. But Dad had his little fake Christmas tree. That stupid experiment lasted 1 year. God love my dad. I love him. I'm Daddy's little boy. But Christmas to me is about real Christmas trees. As a kid, my dad spoiled me. My dad was the inventor of a very first ever that anybody's ever heard of, rotating Christmas tree stand, where you put a real live tree in it, you put water in the bottom of it, and you turn it on, and it would rotate and turn. Now, the concept of a rotating Christmas tree stand is fabulous until you start thinking about a real Christmas tree. Have you ever found a real tree that the trunk is totally straight, completely straight? You'd be hard-pressed to find that. See, trees don't go straight up. As much as you think it's straight, let me tell you, when you get a tree in a stand and you start turning it, if there's any imperfections in that trunk, you see it really fast because it starts turning and it ain't pretty. So what we did when I was a kid, my dad and I would go out and we'd find 2 Christmas trees. We'd buy one big old thick, Dad used to call them balsam trees, Douglas firs, Canaan firs. We'd buy 2 trees. One of them was a thick one that had all kinds of imperfections in it with big old long branches on it. And we'd buy a second one we'd find with the straightest trunk. Now, it was always the case that the tree with the straightest trunk always looked like a Charlie Brown tree. It wasn't very pretty. There were a lot of imperfections on it. There were a lot of areas in that tree of blind spots, of bare spots, of no branches. Hence the 2 trees. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Telling you a story about my Christmas as a kid and how it impacted my life and what we do now. If you've got stories like that, I'd love to hear how you do Christmas and how growing up you were taught to do it one way, but as you got older and involved with relationships, it was always a challenge because you always seemed to partner up or marry or be with somebody that did it differently. And then there's your give and take. My number is 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. So my dad and I would go out and we'd buy 2 trees. One was a Charlie Brown tree, it always seemed like, but it always had the straightest tree trunk. And the second one had a lot of limbs on it. Well, Dad, being the plumber that he was a plumber, he gives his little jigsaw out, this little sawzall, whatever it was he called it, and he'd saw off the branches for the bad tree, the one that wasn't straight, the trunk. And he'd whittle down the ends of those branches, and he'd take out a drill, and he'd go to the tree that had the most perfect trunk. It was straight, that needed more branches on it. And my dad would drill holes in the trunk of that Charlie Brown looking type tree. He'd drill holes into the trunk of it. He'd whittle down. He'd take his pocket knife out and he'd whittle down the limbs from the really good tree. And he'd build his own Christmas tree. He'd take the limbs from tree number 2 and he'd screw them into tree number 1. Sometimes he'd put a little glue in there so they wouldn't fall out. But he took time. It took a day and a half for him to do that. And when that process was done, we had the perfect tree. There were no bare spots in that live tree. There were no dead spots. If there were, he'd cut out the dead ones. He'd put in a real one. It's just like plumbing. It's just like a surgeon would with a body. You take out the bad parts, you put in the new parts, like replacing a hip, like replacing a knee. It's like my dad replacing some elbows or some plumbing. He'd go in, he'd take out the bad parts of the tree with the straight trunk. He'd put in good parts from the other tree, and he'd build a perfect Christmas tree. That was my dad. That's how I grew up, and that's how I am today. I always look for the perfect tree. But you see, we had to have the most perfect tree because we had to have a tree with a straight trunk because of that rotating Christmas tree stand. I don't have a rotating Christmas tree stand. In fact, the Christmas tree stand I have now, I'm on about the 5th version of it. Why? Well, we still go out, me and my family. We cut down a tree. We're going to do it tomorrow. We cut down a tree. And the first year I built my house, I bought a house, remodeled it, built my dream house, moved into it in 2001. The first year I did it, we bought 4 or 5 trees, live trees, and we set them all up around the house. That was a mistake. And the mistake was because I had to keep up 4 or 5 live Christmas trees. And it was a mess getting them out of the house. We put them in every room in the house, second floor, first floor. We even had a Christmas tree in the bathroom. That's how much I love Christmas. So after that first year, I started, I stopped doing live trees everywhere and put artificials in several areas. But the family tree in the family room is still a live Christmas tree. And it's a big one, usually a 12-footer, 14-footer, big old tree. Put it up, decorate it, enjoy it, and you water it and it'll last for a long time. But there was a problem about 6 years ago. We set the tree up, my wife and I, with kids, we got it all done, getting ready to go to bed. Turn out the lights. Literally, we turn out the lights, turn around, and all of a sudden we hear, boom. It fell. A big old 12-foot Christmas tree fell, completely decorated, broke a lot of her precious ornaments. And my wife cried for a long time on that one because there were some family heirloom ornaments on there that broke. That's happened twice in my life now. The last time it happened was about 3 years ago. And after that, my wife found the biggest, unbelievable Christmas tree stand. We won't ever have a tree fall over on us again. Have you had that happen? I'd love to hear the stories about how Christmas ornaments, Christmas decorations, Christmas trees, it was like watching Chevy Chase in those Christmas Vacation movies. The first time that tree fell, or the second time the tree fell, I remember standing there. It was like slow motion. I saw it start to go, and I'm like, oh, no, and went to grab it, and it fell on me, and I fell over. My wife's like, are you okay? Do I need to call a squad? It was like Chevy Chase in those Christmas Vacation movies. But that's Christmas in my household, the Westside Jeff household. I want to hear yours. Have you had trees fall on you? Have you had lights malfunction? What angers me about lights, those miniature lights, when one goes out, the whole string goes out. I get all pissed off. I take them out and I throw it away and go buy another box, put them in there. Nowadays, they have the LED lights that are much better, much more usable. It's the frustrations of Christmas. Once I get in the middle of that, I'm always like, why am I doing this? Why? Why? Why am I doing this? I got to do it differently next year. It's too much work. But when it's done, it's beautiful. It's unbelievable. It's majestical, and I love the lights and Christmas and the decorations and all the family heirlooms. Love to hear your story about decorations and some mishaps that have happened to you. I can't be the only ones that had a Christmas tree fall on me. And call my neighbor at 1:30 in the morning and say, Floyd, you got to get out of bed and come over and help me. This 70-pound tree, I can't get it on my own. Floyd, thank you for doing that. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock. My phone number, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Christmas mishaps. What have you experienced? How'd you deal with it? 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
My family ruined Thanksgiving for me. My first Thanksgiving in the house, I was going to host it. I never hosted Thanksgiving. I was going to have it catered. I wanted to be done really nice. They said, no, you always take us to restaurants. We're going to cater it for you. We're bringing food. There's 10 of us. My sister brings a 12-pound turkey. Since there are 10 of us, tell me there are 9 more turkeys just like this in the kitchen. Tell me this is like the Cornish game hen of turkeys. And my other sister, the health nut, she brought the vegetables. She brought turnips. I don't think you're supposed to eat these. These suck with butter on them. And And nothing sucks with butter on it. Turnips are a horrible vegetable, and they show up during the holidays. What is with the turnip? First of all, you can't cook it. Turnips are a root vegetable. They grow in the ground. That means at the beginning of the world, God made the turnip and said, no. This didn't come out right. Gabriel, try this. Oh, you don't like it either, huh? I was going to put it on a tree, but you know what? I'll bury it and they won't find it. Yeah, well, some idiot dug it up and brought it to my house for Thanksgiving.
John Pinette on his family, how his family ruined Thanksgiving. He's talking about Cornish hens. You know what I could do? Cornish hens. Turkey, I'm not a turkey fan. I think turkey's not very good. I'm not a turkey fan. Changed my mind. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. One of the things he said there is his sister brought in turnips. Turnips out of the ground. They stuffed turkey and put turnips in there. Why is it we put so much stuff in turkey? You got to stuff it to make it good? Listen, I don't stuff everything in my pizza to make it good. To me, pizza's good. I don't stuff everything in a PB&J to make it good. I don't stuff everything into a wrap to make it good. It's pretty good on its own. If turkey were really good, I'd have it more than once a year. You'd eat it more than once a year. Why don't you make turkey more than once a year? Why don't you do a turkey more than once a year? 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. Garrett, I don't see the call screen, unfortunately, but I know we've got a caller. Okay, got it. So had a couple callers that wanted to talk to Garrett, the producer, but not me, and that's okay. Changed my mind. Turkey's not very good. If turkey were so good, why don't we do it more than once a year? You see, I like food. I'm not a foodie, but I like food. And there's certain items that we only eat once a year. The greens on New Year's Day. You know, it's good luck to have cabbage. I don't do cabbage. If I got to eat greens, I'm eating green M&Ms. I'm eating mint green ice cream. I'm not eating cabbage. We eat ribs are okay. Ribs on my wife, and everywhere I go, we see ribs on New Year's Day. I love the concept of ribs. I'm not a big ribs guy because it's too much work. That's why when I go out for wings, chicken wings, I go boneless. They're not work. I'm not, if you got to make me work for food, I'm not interested. Make it easy for me. I'm at the age where make it easy. Turkey is too much work. If it's not that, it just doesn't taste good to me. But there's so many items that I do eat that are relatively easy, and I like them enough that I eat them all the time. PB&J is one of those. I talked earlier about that and took a call about it. You want to know how to make a great PB&J? I'm not talking just a slap of bread, some peanut butter and jelly, and that's it. Although that's fine. To me, I grew up in Ohio. I worked at a restaurant called GD Ritzy's. It went out of business. It came back. There's one store, I think, up in Ohio still. And here's how they did PB&J. That changed my mind on PB&J for life. At Ritzy's, they took a specialty sourdough bread that they made in the store. Now, I don't make homemade bread. Wife has a bread machine, hadn't made it forever. But what I do, and I actually went to Kroger yesterday and bought some specialty whole grain bread, big old thick bread, not a standard slice of bread that you see when you buy in store, but the bread slices I bought and the whole grain are probably twice the size of that. You take that and you put it in the toaster. So you toast it. Toaster oven, whatever it is, you toast it. Then you got to have Jif crunchy peanut butter, not creamy peanut butter. It's got to be crunchy peanut butter. Jif. Skippy's okay. I like Jif. You spread a thick layer of peanut butter on that slice of toasted bread. Then you select your favorite jelly. Mine happens to be blackberry. I pull out some blackberry jelly. I put that on top. And I'm talking a good thick layer of blackberry jelly. Then on top of that, with the blackberry jelly, I put blackberries. So I also buy fresh blackberries. So I got the toasted bread, a thick layer of crunchy peanut butter, Jif peanut butter, and then blackberry jelly. and layer it, and I'm talking layer it, maybe 2 layers of it, of blackberries. So when you're biting into that sandwich, that PB&J, you're getting a good helping of fruit. Because again, when I was a kid, Mom said you got to eat fruit. That's a great way to eat fruit. You eat it on your PB&J. Then you put another layer of bread on top of it that is toasted. And all told, you do it right, that becomes about a 1.5, 2 inch thick sandwich. Now that is a great sandwich. I do that a lot. I'm talking twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. I'm not eating turkey more than once a year. In fact, I typically don't eat turkey, but today I did, just so I can come on the radio and not lie to you and tell you I had turkey. Wasn't that great? Changed my mind. Turkey's okay. It ain't for me. And as I ask people about turkey, I say, do you really like turkey? It's amazing how many people say to me, not really. But it's the thing they do. And my attitude is, again, if it's really good, why don't you eat it more than once a year? PB&J, I could do it all the time. I do it 3, 4 times a week. Pizza, I'll do at least 5 times a week. Here's how I do pizza. I'll buy pizza shells, usually Boboli shells or specialty shells from the grocery store. I take specialty sauce. I order it in from a little Italian place up in Ohio called Carfagna's. Order that sauce in. I put a healthy layer of that on there. I find a store that has really good pepperoni, spicy pepperoni. Put that on top and some fresh mozzarella cheese. I bake it. It's about the way I do it, about 1,700 calories for a full pizza. Half of that, I could eat half of that for lunch, half of that for dinner. That's a hell of a day right there, pizza. I do pizza more than once a year. To me, great foods are something you can eat on an ongoing, regular basis. Turkey's not one of them. But I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for what it does and set the setting of families, friendship, fellowship, and connection with my family.